The snow had started again just after 4. Ethan Cole noticed it the way he noticed most things, quietly, from the corner of his eye, without making a point of it. A few flakes at first, pale against the gray Chicago sky, then thicker, softer, settling on the hood of the delivery van like something that had been falling forever and had only just now decided to land. He pulled into the parking lot of Greenway Apartments on North Halsted, killed the engine, and sat for a moment. The van smelled like cardboard and cold. The heater had been broken since October, and he hadn't gotten around to filing the maintenance request. He kept meaning to. "Dad, we're here." Lily was in the passenger seat with her knees pulled up against the dashboard, her purple backpack squeezed between her feet. 7 years old, sharp-eyed, hair the same dark brown as his. She was looking at him the way she always did when she sensed he was drifting, not worried exactly, just watchful. She had been watchful since she was 3. "Yeah," he said. "We're here." He unclipped his seatbelt, stepped out into the cold. The snow crunched softly under his boots. He went around to the back of the van, pulled out the dolly and 3 stacked boxes, a furniture delivery, 2 side tables, and a lamp, and balanced them with the casual economy of someone who had done this 10,000 times. Lily hopped out and fell into step beside him without being asked. She knew the routine. It was a Tuesday. She had been kept home from Riverdale Elementary because of a low-grade fever that had vanished by noon, leaving her with that particular 7-year-old restlessness that made staying still feel like a punishment. Coming along on the last 2 deliveries had been her idea. He had said yes before she finished asking. "What floor?" she asked. 3. She scrunched her nose. "No elevator? Building this old?" "Probably not." He glanced at the entrance. "We'll check." There was an elevator, as it turned out a narrow, rattling box of a thing that smelled like mildew and old carpet. They took it anyway. Lily pressed the button for the 3rd floor and watched the numbers with the focus of someone performing a very important task. Ethan studied the hallway map bolted to the elevator wall. It was the kind of thing almost no one looked at. He looked at everything. 3rd floor. Long corridor, 6 units per side. Stairwell at the east end. Fire extinguisher cabinet, near Unit 3. C. Emergency exit signage, pointing both directions. Drop ceiling tiles, probably asbestos in a building this age. Sprinkler heads every 12 feet. He clocked all of it in the time it took the elevator to shudder to a stop. Room 3F was a woman named Mrs. Patricia Harmon, who opened the door in a housecoat and slippers and spent 4 minutes telling him where to put the side tables before deciding the lamp should go in the bedroom, not the living room, which meant moving one of the tables and then second-guessing the bedroom placement. Ethan moved everything without complaint. Lily sat on the hallway floor, just outside the open door, and read the battered paperback she kept in her backpack, a dog-eared copy of The Phantom Toll Booth that she had already read twice. "Such a well-behaved little girl," Mrs. Harmon said, peering out at her. "She is," Ethan said. He meant it without sentimentality. Lily was the most quietly capable person he had ever known, and she was 7. He was aware this was not a neutral observation. He was her father. He loved her in a way that still occasionally surprised him with its weight. But he also believed it was simply true. He had raised her alone for 4 years. He had packed lunches and attended parent-teacher conferences and sat on the floor of the bathroom at 2 in the morning when she had the stomach flu. He had learned to braid hair from a video and practiced on a stuffed giraffe named Gerald until he got it right. He did not think of these things as extraordinary. He thought of them as the job. Outside, the snow was coming harder. They rode the elevator back down to the lobby. Ethan returned the dolly to the van, signed off on the delivery manifest on his phone, and checked the time. 4:47. One more stop, a package drop on Wicker Park, and then home. He had leftover chicken and rice in the refrigerator, and Lily had a reading log she was supposed to fill out before tomorrow. He was reaching for the driver's door when he heard it, a soft crump from somewhere above, like a book dropped on a hard floor. Then a second sound, lower, duller, not quite an explosion. More like the building clearing its throat. Then the smell. He stopped with his hand on the door handle. Lily was already in the passenger seat. She looked over at him. The smell was faint at first. Chemical-edged. Hot. His body understood it before his mind did. Something old and practiced woke in his chest. Then the fire alarm went off. It started as a single panel in the lobby, sealing a dim flickering where none of the light fixtures were, and then the alarm, that hollow industrial shrieking that cuts through walls and thought alike. And then the lobby door banged open, and a man in a gray undershirt stumbled out clutching a phone, shouting into it in a voice too ragged to make out the words. More people came. The stairwell door kept opening, families with children, an older man in a suit, a woman carrying a cat in a tote bag. They poured out into the parking lot, into the snow, and the alarm kept screaming, and somewhere above the third floor, the sky was beginning to change color, a faint orange tinge against the heavy gray clouds. Ethan was already out of the van. He had not made a decision exactly. His feet had moved, and his mind was catching up. He scanned the crowd. No one was directing anyone. People were pulling out their phones and pointing up and talking over each other. A woman in her 50s had started crying near the mailboxes. No fire department yet. He could hear sirens, far away. Getting closer. But not close enough. A voice cut through it all. "There's still someone on 3, I heard her." She was yelling. He traced the voice to a teenager. A kid maybe 16 with a delivery bag still over his shoulder, pointing up at the building. Ethan turned and looked. Third floor windows. West side. Unit 3A or 3B. Smoke was pushing out from under the frame in thin, dark ribbons. And as he watched, the window of 3B went amber, not flames yet. Just the light behind it, going warm and wrong. He did the geometry without thinking. Exit points, time, oxygen, structural load. The building was old brick, good for heat resistance, bad for the ceiling and internal partition walls, which were probably original construction, and would burn fast once they caught. The stairwell was still viable if the fire was contained to the west side. The east emergency exit would give him more time. He turned to Lily. She was standing 3 feet away, watching him. Not afraid she knew her father, but quiet in that particular way. That meant she understood something was happening. He crouched down in front of her, took both her hands. "I need you to stay right here," he said. "Right in this spot. You see that man over there, with the blue jacket? If anything changes, you go stand next to him. You don't move from this parking lot. Understand?" She looked at him for a moment. Her jaw was tight. "Okay," she said. "I'll be right back." He stood up and ran for the building. The morning had started the way most of her mornings started, too early, too full. Not enough coffee. Claire Bennett had been a principal architect at Harrow and Sloan Design Group for 3 years, and she had the schedule to prove it. Clients in San Francisco, deadlines in 2 time zones, a team of 6 who all needed different things from her at different times. She had chosen this, she reminded herself frequently. She had built this. She was taking a personal day, her first in 4 months, to deal with the mountain of domestic logistics she had been pushing down the road since September. New blinds for the bedroom, a shelf that needed rehanging in the hallway, a grocery list that had stopped being metaphorical and started being an emergency. She had just come back up from the basement laundry room when the alarm went off. She didn't panic immediately. Alarms went off. Usually it was a malfunction, a bad sensor, a neighbor burning toast. She set her laundry basket down and reached for her coat and her phone and her keys on the counter. And that was when she noticed the smell. Not toast. She was at the front door when the lights went out. The building's power flickered once and died, leaving only the emergency lighting those pale red strips near the floor, barely enough to see by. She pulled the door open, and the hallway hit her like a wall. Not smoke yet. Not thick, but warm, noticeably warm, and the alarm was deafening, and the light from Unit 3B across the hall was doing something it shouldn't be doing, a trembling orange that she understood, on some animal level, was wrong. She turned toward the stairwell. The bookcase fell. She had moved it 3 weeks ago, a heavy freestanding unit, teak, belonged to the previous tenant, and weighed more than it looked, and she had meant to bolt it to the wall, but hadn't gotten around to it. The floor vibrated with whatever was happening in the adjacent unit, and the bookcase swayed. and she watched it happen with a strange slowness, and then it came down across the doorway, and the edge of it caught her left leg just above the ankle. The pain was immediate and white and specific. She hit the floor. The bookcase was across her lower leg. Not crushing, the corner had glanced off her rather than landed full weight, but when she tried to stand, the ankle buckled and the pain spiked up her shin in a way that made spots swim at the edge of her vision. Sprained at minimum, possibly worse. She pulled herself to sitting. The smoke was thicker now, rolling in from under the door of 3B, gray-white and acrid. She could feel it in the back of her throat. She pulled her sweater up over her nose and tried to move the bookcase. Too heavy. She got it 6 inches before her arms gave out. She was on the floor of the hallway, trapped, with smoke coming in from both sides now, and the alarm screaming, and the lights failing. She shouted once, twice. Her voice disappeared into the noise. She pressed her back against the wall, tried to think. The smoke was getting into her lungs now. A deep chemical scrape with every breath. Her eyes were streaming. She could see the emergency exit sign at the far end of the hall, red in the darkness. And it might as well have been a mile away. That was when the stairwell door burst open. He came through low, one shoulder against the doorframe, already moving with the kind of practiced efficiency that had nothing to do with luck. He was not what she expected. In the half-second before she closed her eyes against another wave of smoke. Not big, not in any obvious way. Medium height, lean, wearing a plain gray work jacket and boots. No gear, no equipment. He had a wet cloth pressed to his face. She registered it as his jacket sleeve, soaked with water from somewhere, and he moved through the smoke-filled corridor with his head down and his eyes tracking. He found her in 6 seconds. She knew because she counted. He crouched in front of her, and she saw his eyes, dark, quick, evaluating, move over her and the bookcase and the hallway and the door of 3B with the same expression a carpenter might use assessing a beam. Not calm exactly, just without the particular kind of fear that wastes time. "I can't move," she said. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. The words tasted like smoke. He didn't reassure her. He looked at the bookcase. "Pinned or broken?" he said. I don't know. The ankle. The shelf hit it." He put his hands on the bookcase, shifted his weight, found the leverage point, and lifted the edge off her leg in one controlled movement that required genuine strength but didn't show off about it. Then he checked her leg, a brief, careful examination, fingers pressing along the ankle. "You can flex it?" She did. Pain, but it moved. He nodded. Okay. He was already looking at the rest of the hallway. The smoke was thickening fast. The door of 3B was visibly warm now. She could see the wood darkening from the heat, and there was a sound coming from inside it. A low, structural groan that she could feel through the floor. "Main stairs are blocked," he said, more to himself than to her. "East exit." "How do you know the main stairs?" "I came up them." He was already standing, sliding one arm under hers, helping her to her feet. The ankle held with his support, but wouldn't take full weight. "Wrap your arm here." She did. "Keep your head low." They moved. He had wrapped the wet cloth around her mouth and nose. She only realized afterward he'd done it one-handed while supporting her weight. He kept himself slightly in front, body angled to take the worst of the smoke, eyes forward. The hallway felt half the width it had been. The heat was building from the west side like a wall. She tried to match his pace. Her ankle sent fire up her leg with every step. He didn't slow down, but he adjusted to her subtly, almost imperceptibly, keeping her upright, without making her feel carried, without making her feel helpless. "Look at me," he said. When her head drooped from the smoke, she looked at him. "Stay awake." The east corridor was better, less smoke. Cooler, but better is not the same as safe. The ceiling above Unit 3D was making a sound she had never heard before, and hoped never to hear again. A deep, rhythmic creaking that meant the structural supports above it were working too hard. The overhead fluorescent fixture, still connected to the emergency backup, flickered in time with the sound. Ethan calculated time, temperature, distance. He had done this before, a long time ago. In buildings that looked nothing like this one, and buildings that looked exactly like this. His body still knew. It ran the numbers without being asked. The emergency exit was at the end of the corridor, through the 3E utility alcove, then a hard left down a fire stair he had marked on the map in the elevator. 20 seconds at a brisk walk, longer with an injured person. He checked the door of 3D, as they passed, pressed the back of his hand against the wood, held it for 1 second, pulled away. Hot, but not critical. The fire was lateral, not yet climbing through the structure. The sprinklers had failed, the alarm had triggered them, but the pipe pressure was low, probably because someone had cut the system for maintenance and not restored it. He had noticed the dry floor when he came up, a detail most people would file as good news without asking why. Claire was still upright. Doing better than most would. She had stopped asking questions and started using her energy to move. Which meant she was thinking. "Who are you?" she said. They were 12 feet from the alcove. "Ethan, do you live here?" "No." She almost laughed, on reflex, a small exhale through the wet cloth. "Okay." They reached the alcove. He checked the exit door, cool, clear, and pushed it open with one shoulder. The fire stair opened up in front of them, gray concrete, industrial railing, exactly where the map had said it would be. Cold air rushed in from below. Clean cold, smoke-free. She exhaled. He didn't slow down. They were 3 steps down when the ceiling in the hallway behind them gave way. Not the whole ceiling, a section of it. Maybe 8 feet of plaster and underlying structure, coming down with a crash that shook the walls and sent a wave of thick gray smoke billowing into the stairwell. The door banged on its hinges from the pressure change. Claire flinched hard against him. He tightened his arm around her and kept moving. "Don't stop," he said. She didn't. The man in the blue jacket was named Dennis, and he worked in insurance, and he had no idea why the small girl had positioned herself 3 feet to his left and was staring up at the building with an expression that made him profoundly uncomfortable. She hadn't said anything to him. She had simply appeared beside him, planted her feet, and fixed her eyes on the 3rd floor with the focused stillness of someone who had been told to wait and intended to wait correctly. The fire department arrived 2 trucks, then a 3rd, and the paramedics came, and people were being directed back, and there was the organized noise of emergency responders doing what they were trained to do. A firefighter in full gear was talking to a woman near the entrance. Hoses were being unrolled across the snow. Lily watched the east side of the building. She had been watching for 3 minutes when the door opened. A man and a woman came through it. The man had his arm around the woman, and she was leaning into him, and they were both moving slowly, unsteadily, with the careful deliberateness of people who had just done something difficult. The woman was coughing. The man was not. Lily watched as a paramedic reached them, immediately moving fast, bringing an oxygen mask, helping the woman to a gurney. Voices, hands, efficient motion. The man stood apart from it, hands at his sides. He was breathing hard. She could see that from here. But he was standing up straight, and he was looking back at the building, checking, cataloging, doing something in his head. Then he turned and saw her. She crossed the parking lot at a dead run. She hit him full force in the midsection, both arms around him, face pressed into his jacket, which smelled like smoke and cold and him. He put both arms around her. His hands were shaking a fine, almost invisible tremor. She could feel it. He pressed his face into the top of her head. Neither of them said anything for a long time. The paramedics wanted to check him out. He let them take his blood pressure and examine his hands, which had a minor burn across the right palm from where he had braced against the wall. He told them it was nothing, and they gave him a bandage and some burn gel, and told him to follow up with a doctor. He told them he would. He sat on the back bumper of the ambulance with Lily beside him, her head leaning against his arm, watching the firefighters work. The east and west wings of the 3rd floor were fully compromised now, but the building was not. They would save it. He could tell by the angle they were running the water. A Chicago Fire Department captain came over after a while, a heavy man with a red face and ice-gray mustache named Ridgway. "That was you?" he said. "Bystander," Ethan said. Ridgway looked at him, looked at the building, looked back. "You came up the east stair?" "Yes." "Checked the fire door on 3D. A pause. "I was checking the exit." "Right." Ridgway scratched the back of his neck. "You know we had a crew suiting up when you brought her out." "I know. You should have waited." Ethan said nothing. "You also shouldn't have known to check the sprinkler feed line, but our crew says the valve was closed manually, and that was before the fire started. So," Ridgway looked at him again. "You got a name?" "Ethan Cole." "Mr. Cole. You a first responder?" "A beat." "Not anymore." The woman he had brought out was named Claire Bennett. He found this out from a paramedic who was looking for next-of-kin contact information and assumed Ethan would have it. He corrected the misunderstanding, gave them her apartment number, and went to sit with Lily in the van with the heat running. It was working again. He had fixed it last week, he just hadn't gotten around to filing the update. They sat in the parking lot while the trucks worked. "Is she okay?" Lily asked. "She will be. Her leg was hurt. Sprained. Maybe a small fracture. They'll tell her at the hospital." Lily considered this. Outside, a television crew had appeared from somewhere local news. Probably a woman in a coat talking into a camera with the fire trucks framed behind her. "The people on TV want to talk to you," Lily said. "I know. Are you going to?" "No." She seemed unsurprised by this. She went back to her book, angled toward the window for the light. Ethan sat with his hands in his lap. His right palm throbbed under the bandage. The adrenaline was leaving him now. Gradually, the way it always had, not suddenly dropping but slow, like water draining from a tub, leaving everything quiet and slightly heavier. He was 41 years old. He had not been in a burning building in 4 years. He had thought the thing inside him, the thing that had moved his feet before his mind could stop them, had gone quieter than this. He had been wrong. He was 29 when he joined the Chicago Fire Department, and 32 when he transferred to the Urban Search and Rescue Task Force, one of 6 federally designated USAR teams in the state. He spent 4 years doing the work that most firefighters never see. Collapsed structures, industrial disasters, 3 deployments to other states when floods and earthquakes asked for more bodies than local departments could spare. He was good at it. He was, by multiple accounts, exceptional at it. He had a gift for structural geometry, for reading a damaged building, the way some people read a face, catching the small signs of what it was about to do. His captain at Task Force 3 had called it an instinct, which Ethan had always found imprecise. It wasn't instinct. It was observation. He paid attention to the things other people walked past. He met Sarah at a bar in Logan Square on a Wednesday in February. And they were engaged within the year. And Lily was born the year after that. He had been the happiest he had ever been in his life, which he recognized even at the time, with the awareness that happiness of that specific kind is never fully safe. The call came on a March afternoon, a warehouse fire on the south side, a building that should have been condemned 2 years earlier, a structure so compromised that the first arriving engine company should have recognized it on approach. They did not. Sarah was a paramedic, on duty, staging outside for a transfer. The roof of the northeast section came down without warning. She was 43 feet from the building's east wall. The investigation found 7 separate code violations. The building's owner was eventually fined. Ethan did not follow the case closely after a certain point. He left the task force 8 months after the funeral. Lily was 3. She needed a parent who came home. He did not make a dramatic announcement. He filed the paperwork, cleared out his locker, drove home. He got his commercial driver's license the following month and took a job with a logistics company because it was steady and the hours were predictable and nobody was in danger. He moved to a 2-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Square. He learned to braid hair from a video, practiced on a stuffed giraffe named Gerald, got it right eventually. He told Lily almost nothing about his work before. She was too young, and then she was not too old, but he was out of the habit of telling anyone anything. And it seemed like a door that didn't need to be opened. Captain Ridgway knew, as it turned out. He had checked. He came back to the van while Ethan was sitting in the driver's seat. Knocked on the window. Ethan rolled it down. "Task Force 3, Ridgway said. It was not a question. "Yeah." The captain nodded slowly, hands in his coat pockets. "Your wife was the paramedic on Renner Street." Ethan looked straight ahead through the windshield at the fire trucks. Yeah, he said again. Ridgway was quiet for a moment. Then, for what it's worth, Cole, that woman is alive because of you. The crew found the fire in the utility corridor less than a minute after you got her out. She couldn't have made it alone. Ethan didn't respond. Ridgway tapped the door frame twice and walked away. 10 days later, a Thursday, just after 5 in the evening, Ethan was in the kitchen. He had a pot of soup on the stove, nothing elaborate, chicken and vegetables and egg noodles, the kind of thing that made the apartment smell like something worth coming home to. Lily was at the kitchen table doing homework, or supposed to be doing homework, actually conducting a detailed interrogation of a ladybug she had found on the windowsill and transported to a paper cup. Ladybugs don't hibernate, she informed him. I know. They cluster, though. In winter. Like thousands of them together. I know. Did you know that? I did. She considered this. How? I used to read the same kind of books you read. She seemed pleased by this, filed it away for future reference. The ladybug made a bid for freedom, and she gently redirected it with one finger. The knock at the door was quiet. He almost didn't hear it over the stove. He opened it. Claire Bennett was standing in the hallway in a dark coat, her hair down, one hand resting on a wooden cane. Her ankle was in a brace, a moderate lateral sprain with a small avulsion fracture. He would learn later. Not serious, but requiring 6 to 8 weeks. She looked better than she had in the corridor on the 3rd floor of Greenway Apartments, which was a low bar, but she also looked better than he might have expected. Composed, clear-eyed, carrying herself with a straightness that suggested the cane was a concession to practicality rather than limitation. She had found his address through the fire department report, which he had apparently appeared in under his full legal name, because Captain Ridgway had been thorough. She looked at him for a moment. You disappeared, she said. I went home. Before anyone could, she paused. Before anyone could say anything. There wasn't anything to say. She looked past him into the apartment. He was aware, briefly, of how it must look to her small, organized, nothing decorative, except Lily's drawings, stuck to the refrigerator with magnets. 3 of them recently. A sun, a house, a figure labeled Dad with oversized hands. Can I come in? Claire asked. He stepped back. Lily looked up from her homework immediately, registered the cane, the stranger, her father's face, and executed the social calculation that 7-year-olds perform faster than adults' credit. Hi, she said pleasantly. Hi, said Claire. I'm Lily. I'm Claire. Does your leg hurt? A little. Claire looked at the brace, then at Lily. It's getting better. Dad sprains his ankle sometimes when he goes running. He doesn't make a big deal of it. Ethan went to the stove and turned down the soup. They sat at the kitchen table. He had moved Lily's homework to one end. Claire had removed her coat, and he brought 2 mugs of coffee and a glass of orange juice for Lily, who had reinstated the ladybug interrogation, but was very clearly listening to everything. Claire held her mug without drinking from it. Looking at him, you saved my life, she said. I've been trying to figure out how to say more than that. And I can't. That's the thing. It just keeps being that. You were breathing, he said. Someone should have gone in. Nobody did. The fire crew was 60 seconds behind me. You don't know if that would have been fast enough. He knew it would not have been. He said nothing. I did some asking around, Claire said carefully. After the report. Task Force 3. USAR certification. She glanced at Lily, who was now making a careful observation of her ladybug with a magnifying glass she had produced from somewhere. You were in the field for 6 years. 4.5. Why did you leave? He looked at his coffee. Lily, he said, after a moment. Claire seemed to understand, from his tone, not to push. She glanced again at the refrigerator at the drawing labeled Dad with the big hands. The things you knew, she said. In that building. The sprinkler line. The ceiling structure. Which door to check. Training. You haven't been trained in 4 years. That kind of training doesn't go anywhere. He paused. It's not something you forget. It's more like a way of seeing. She was quiet for a moment. Does it bother you? She asked. Having that. carrying it, and doing what you do now. He looked up at her. It was a more precise question than he had expected. Most people, when they found out, went one of two directions. Either they told him it was a waste, that he should go back, that someone with his skills shouldn't be driving a van, or they got uncomfortable and changed the subject. Claire had done neither. She had asked the actual question. Sometimes, he said. Lily looked up from her ladybug. Dad's good at lots of things, she said, matter-of-factly. He knows all the fire exits everywhere. And he can fix pretty much anything. And he does this thing when he walks into a room where he looks at all the corners first. Claire looked at him. She's very observant, he said. She is. From across the table, Lily gave them both a look of profound satisfaction and returned to her ladybug. 2 weeks after that first visit, Claire came back. She had taken to stopping by, not frequently, not intrusively, but with a regularity that Ethan noticed without examining too carefully. She brought a book for Lily the second time, a field guide to insects, which elevated her to a near mythological status in Lily's estimation. The ladybug had been released back to the world, but not forgotten. The ankle was healing. She used the cane less. She was back working partial days from home, fielding calls on her laptop at the kitchen counter. While Ethan made dinner, he did not examine too carefully how quickly that had become a comfortable arrangement, either. On a Saturday afternoon in late January, with snow coming down in earnest outside and Lily at a friend's birthday party 3 blocks away, Claire sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open and said, without looking up, I want to talk to you about something. Okay, he said. He was doing the dishes. One of our project clients runs a safety consulting firm, commercial buildings, structural assessments, emergency protocol design. They've been looking for someone to lead their training division, specifically someone with USAR background. She paused. I told them about you. He turned off the faucet. Without asking me, without asking you. Yes. She looked up now. I'm aware, that was presumptuous. He dried his hands on a dish towel and sat down across from her. Why? Because I've watched you look at every building you enter. I watched you count the ceiling sprinklers in the pizza place last week. I watched you tell Lily where to stand in the parking lot before you ran into a burning building. She paused. You're doing it anyway, Ethan. Every day, constantly. You haven't stopped. You just stopped getting paid for it. He looked at the table. The hours are regular, she added. No field deployment. Training and assessment. Monday through Friday. I'd have to take a licensing exam. My certification's lapsed. She blinked. Is that a yes? It's a precondition. She looked at him for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression, relief, maybe, or something that wanted to be relief and hadn't quite gotten there yet. I thought you were going to tell me it wasn't possible, she said. Most things that look impossible are just inconvenient. He stood up and went back to the dishes. After a moment, thank you for looking into it. She turned back to her laptop. You're welcome, she said, in a voice that suggested she was working very hard to stay casual about it. He picked her up from the party at 6. She came down the front walk of the Weaver house, still wearing a paper crown from the birthday game, cheeks pink from the cold, carrying a goodie bag in one hand, and Gerald the giraffe who had come out of retirement for the occasion in the other. She climbed into the van and immediately reported, in considerable detail, the events of the party, the cake flavor, chocolate. Unfortunately, she preferred vanilla, the game that had been played. She had come in second, which was correct because the winner was the birthday girl, and it would have been rude to beat her, and the girl named Mackenzie, who had been crying about something in the bathroom for a while. Ethan listened to all of this. He did not drive through the part about Mackenzie. What was she crying about? I don't know exactly. Her parents are getting divorced, I think. Emily told me. Lily looked out the window. I told her, my mom died when I was 3, and that it was still sad, but you got used to sad things eventually. Is that true? He thought about it. You don't get used to them, he said. You get better at carrying them. Lily considered this with the same focused seriousness she brought to most things. Did it help? He asked. What you said to her? I think so. She stopped crying. He drove. After a while, Lily said, "Is Claire staying for dinner?" She already went home. "Oh." A pause. "She comes over a lot." "She does. I like it when she does." He said nothing. "Dad." Lily turned to look at him. She had the paper crown still on, slightly tilted. "You don't have to be alone. You know that, right?" He kept his eyes on the road. She had said it the way a 7-year-old says things directly, without understanding entirely what she was saying, and therefore with a precision that no adult could have managed. No setup, no careful framing. Just the thing itself. He felt it land somewhere specific. "I know," he said. She turned back to the window, apparently satisfied. "Can we have soup tonight?" "Already on the stove." "I knew it." She adjusted her crown. "You always have it on the stove." March came in cold and left warm. On a Tuesday, early enough that the neighborhood was still quiet and the light was the particular pale gold of just after sunrise, Ethan stood on the front steps of the apartment building with a coffee in one hand and his phone in the other. He was reviewing the training schedule for his 3rd week at Meridian Safety Partners, which was what the consulting firm was called, and which had a parking lot that he had already assessed for emergency vehicle access and found moderately satisfactory. The licensing exam had taken 6 weeks to prepare for. He had passed on the first attempt. His supervisor, a former structural engineer named Frank Hollis, who communicated primarily in monosyllables and appeared to regard Ethan's skill set with a mixture of professional respect and personal wariness, had told him, at the end of the 2nd week, that the training protocols he had redesigned were the best the division had seen. Ethan had said thank you and gone back to work. He heard the door behind him open. Claire came out in a coat and scarf, carrying her own coffee, hair still slightly damp from the shower. She had stayed because the snow had come in hard overnight, and the roads had been bad, and there was a guest room, and it had made practical sense. She stood beside him on the steps. They looked at the street. Someone's dog was investigating a patch of thawed grass. A kid on a bicycle tested the sidewalk cautiously. "Lily's still asleep," Claire said. "She will be until 7:15. Then she'll be up and asking about breakfast with no warning at all." "I know." Claire wrapped her hands around her mug. "She told me yesterday that she thinks Gerald the giraffe would like me, which I believe is high praise." "It is," he considered. "Gerald has high standards." She laughed quiet, genuine, and he felt it in his chest the way he had been letting himself feel things again, carefully, with the deliberate attention of someone learning a practice they had let go dormant. He had lost Sarah 4 years ago. He had been carrying that loss every day, in the way he had told Lily, not getting used to it but getting better at the carrying. Some mornings, it was still the first thing. Some mornings lately, it wasn't. He thought she would have liked Claire. He thought she would have found the whole situation, the fire, the parking lot, the fish out of water quietly funny in the way that Sarah had found most things quietly funny. She had been better at laughing than he was. He had always meant to tell her that more often. "You're going somewhere in your head," Claire said. "I do that." "I know." She looked at him. "You come back, though. That's the thing I've noticed. You always come back." He looked at her. He did not have the words, exactly, for the thing he wanted to say. He was aware that words were not always the primary vehicle, that a lot of what mattered happened in the smaller actions, the daily ones, the soup on the stove and the homework at the table and the standing beside. He had been doing those things, and she had been doing those things, and Lily had been doing her part, which primarily consisted of being herself, and occasionally making pronouncements that hit with the precision of a guided instrument. "You don't have to be alone." "No," he said. "I come back." They stood on the steps as the morning brightened around them, the snow still lying white and unmarked on the grass. The city still waking up. Everything ahead of them still becoming what it was going to be. Inside, at 7:15 exactly, they heard Lily's feet hit the floor.